Welcome. Welcome to the Advanced Transportation Technology Seminar Series for this fall semester. And just want to make sure that you have a pretty good idea of what we're going to be doing this year. On the side table over there, there should be copies of the list of seminars. And we've pulled together a very interesting series, and we're going to start off, and I'll introduce our speaker, Vic Lund, a little bit later on. But in the meantime, we'll have various topics covered, everything from rail safety, bicycle safety. There'll be discussions of safety on tribal lands, issues of perception and speeding, and a whole variety of different topics. And we have quite a variety of speakers who will be here during the course of the semester. I just also want to remind you, some of you are professionals, but some of you are students. This is a graduate seminar course, and you can register for it and get one seminar credit. And for those of you registered for a seminar credit, there is a syllabus which you can download from classinfo.umn.edu. Or there are some copies on the side. To get credit, you have to attend 10 of the 11 seminars, plus you must write a short little report. We won't say exactly how little, but a short report summarizing the seminar as if you're reporting to your boss who isn't there. And that will be, you will be expected to submit 5 of those. 5 out of the 11 seminars have to be written up in order to get credit, and it's pass-fail. So you get 1 credit, and we like to see everybody pass, but you still have to submit those short reports. I'm trying to think of what else I need to say. We're going to have Kylie Bivens will be helping me with the course, with this whole seminar series, and I'm going to let her tell you a little bit more about some of the details of doing a live webcast and what you have to do if you're offline, well, online, but not in the room. We need to take care of some of those issues. So Kylie will tell you more about that.
Thanks, Max. And I did want to mention that this microphone is for our remote audience. So if you're confused as to why it's not in the room, that's why. So you won't hear us in the room here. But as Max said, this is a seminar as well as a webinar. So we do have an audience that will be watching the seminar online through YouTube Live. So for our remote audience, if you're watching, please go into the chat box and submit your name and affiliation and how many people are currently watching the webinar in your location so that we can report our viewership to the US DOT. That would be very helpful. For our live audience, please save all of your questions for the end of the seminar, and we will come around with the microphone so that it can be broadcasted on our webinar. For our remote audience, if you have questions, please put your questions into the same chat box that you are introducing yourself in, and we will get to your questions at the end as well, and I will ask the questions for you. Without further ado, I will hand it back over to Max to introduce our speaker.
What I tried to do with the first seminar is have a professional come and talk to you about their experience and what they believe are the important issues to be focused on when we talk about transportation safety. I've known Vic Lund for quite a number of years, and just to give you a little bit of background, he is the county traffic engineer for St. Louis County. He originally got his undergraduate degree at Michigan Tech in Houghton, Michigan. I don't know how many of you have been in Houghton. I've been there. I've never been there in the winter, and Vic tells me that they have 170 inches of snowfall on average every winter. That's about 15 feet of snow. So for those of you worried about Minneapolis-St. Paul winters, you should be going up to Houghton. Anyway, he went on afterwards and got his master's degree in civil engineering from Iowa State, and then joined St. Louis County about 9 years ago. And I asked him, why did he go to St. Louis County? And they had a very progressive county board. They had a $40 million annual budget, which is pretty unheard of for rural counties anywhere in the country. And so he's made it his home. And so without further ado, Vic Lund will talk to you about systemic approach to rural highway safety.
Well, very good. Thank you very much, Max. I really appreciate that very kind introduction. Actually, I've been looking forward to coming down here. Dr. Donath invited me about a few weeks ago, and we've been kind of on the systemic trail in the county level and statewide and also nationally. In fact, I just attended a peer exchange with the Federal Highway Administration earlier this summer, talking about this very topic, introducing it to other local agencies around the country that may have heard about it or not sure exactly what it's about. So I'm looking forward to talking about that. And St. Louis County is a unique county. We have approximately 3,000 miles of county roads. About half of that system is paved. Approximately 600 bridges are located on that county highway system. So we've got a pretty significant system. I appreciate the comment one of my engineering colleagues had made earlier, a couple years ago. He said that engineers in St. Louis County have a big sandbox we get to play in. So we're excited about that. So there's always some stuff to do. So I want to focus today again on this whole issue of systemic approach to rural highway safety, just kind of really get into what is the systemic approach, what does it look like, how can we apply it, go maybe slightly into the history of the traditional approach to highway safety, how transportation engineers have traditionally done this, and then talk about maybe some consequences or challenges regarding a traditional only approach. After we talk about systemic safety, we're going to get into a practical example of how we applied systemic safety here in Minnesota. It's actually become kind of a quasi-national model. And then after that, we'll talk about some benefits and wrap it up with some concluding remarks. So I'm hoping that I'm going to leave you about 10 minutes or so for questions, and we can go from there. Well, this slide is it's unfortunately too easy to find an article like this by just Googling this question on the internet. You can find fatal crash reports, fatal crash articles all too easy in Minnesota and nationally. One of the questions, and if somebody wants to blurt this out, that's fine, on just these two bottom questions. What question was likely asked of the highway agency immediately after or some short time after this fatal crash or these fatal crashes occurred? Does anybody have any thoughts of what question that highway agency might have received? Any thoughts? Well, pardon? Was the driver buckled? Okay, maybe some causal factors. I'm going to elevate it to kind of more of a philosophical approach, which would be, how many people have to die before you do something? That is a very common question. If you are a practitioner in transportation, especially traffic engineering, you're always getting that phone call, I would say dozens of times per year, at least in St. Louis County, more so if you're at a higher threshold type agency. But when I talk with folks like that, we have to be very sensitive, we have to be very respectful, because they're asking from correct and right motives. But then I always like to turn that question back to them as an educational opportunity and say, what question should I be asking, which is it acceptable that we have fatal crashes? And if it's not acceptable, that means we have to ask the question, are there certain driver behaviors that are unacceptable? Not wearing your seatbelt, speeding, or driving while intoxicated. All these hard questions start coming down to be very personalized at that point. Instead of it just being a third-party highway agency, let them take care of my safety, I mind my own business, it comes down to a cultural question. Are fatal or serious crashes acceptable on our highway system? And I would suggest the answer is clearly no. Why? Because how many people are acceptable within your family to be involved in a serious crash? I would suggest that you probably would say 0. And therefore, I would suggest that, broadly speaking, that should be our goal as public agencies. The focus is safety. The customer of the highway agency is the traveling public. and safety by extension is the priority. Earlier this summer, I'd mentioned I was at that peer exchange with the Federal Highway Administration. On the way back, on the way down, I had some travel problems, but on the way back, I thought I'd have some clear sailing, quote unquote, in the sky. But on the way, I was in the Minneapolis airport waiting for a flight up to Duluth. It was like an 8 o'clock flight. Got to Duluth, had to circle the airport, too much fog, had to go back to Minneapolis. I got to have a free night stay at the Minneapolis airport. That was exciting. And but the next morning, about 7:30 in the morning, we took off again, got to Duluth, too foggy. We had to circle, come back to Minneapolis. About 11 o'clock in the morning, by that time, the fog had burned off, and we made another attempt, and we were able to land in Duluth that time. But keep in mind, I thought this was interesting. Same group of passengers, the airline was willing to spend 3 travel costs, if you want to put them in that bracket, to the city of Duluth to ensure the safety of the passengers. Airlines believe it's important, and highway agencies believe it's important. Improving highway safety requires a data-driven approach, not a subjective, I think it will. Hope is not an engineering strategy. I will emphasize that again. Hope is not an engineering strategy. Too often I'll talk with residents, and I say this respectfully. They say it with right motives, but they'll make many suggestions on how can we improve safety at their location of concern. Coincidentally, because they have a driver's license, they're a licensed traffic engineer, but we're able to then talk in some length. And I always ask them, are you willing to talk about a few minutes on this topic? My conversations last 30, 40 minutes when I talk to these folks. It's worth my time to be able to communicate that to them. And generally, they're very appreciative. The goal is toward 0 deaths, not toward 0 crashes. We're going to talk about this whole issue of what is our performance measure. And I would argue it's serious crashes, not all crashes. They lead you to different places, and they're substantively different between themselves. And real results, I would argue, is leveraged by not just the engineers, not just the enforcement officers, but that multidisciplinary approach, Minnesota TZD, the 4 E's, or the 5 E's if you include everyone. Every good traffic safety presentation has to include this chart. A couple things I think are of interest. Number one, if you look in the 1990s and the early 2000s, maybe even back into the 1980s, nationally and statewide. Nationally, we were about 42,000 fatalities per year. Statewide, we were about 600 fatalities per year. And these are all roads. But something happened in the early 2000s. There was a break in the trend. In Minnesota, it came earlier than the national level. But in Minnesota, it was about 2003. Nationally, it was about 2005, 2006. I would argue what we're going to talk about today had some contributing effect to that. I'm not sure exactly how much. But something happened, and we are definitely on the right track towards some benefits here. I like to use this clock as a sober reminder of what we're dealing with. This isn't just an academic discussion. This is a real-life discussion. 4 fatalities per hour if you take 2015 numbers and divide them by 365 in the number of hours per day. But 96 is the number I want to grab onto. I understand it's apples and oranges, the comparison here. But a typical airliner probably has a passenger occupancy of about 70 to 90 people. We would have an equivalent of 1 airline crash killing everybody on board every day in the United States. That is the equivalent toll on human life that the surface transportation takes on the traveling public. That is the scale. And then my last chart, St. Louis County crash data. These are just county roads. And I look at your K crashes, somebody was killed. A crashes, it was a serious injury, meaning somebody had a brain injury or paralyzed or something like that. But the black line, the total serious crashes, are really what I'm looking at. And again, we kind of experienced that dip in St. Louis County in the early 2000s, and since 2008, 2009, we've been kind of hovering in that about 20 or so serious crashes per year. Again, our goal is towards 0 death, just like many other agencies. Contributing factors, the question has to be asked of why, what is happening in these crashes? What is pushing these crashes to actually happening? And I would say that this chart does not say that, well, because 90% of the contributing factors are driver-related, It doesn't really matter what we do on the roads because it's all driver related. We only need to focus on 30% on the roadway. I don't think it's saying that. I think it's saying that because 93% of the contributing factors are driver related, we need to design systems that are forgiving, do proactive strategies knowing that where people will make mistakes, we can do those strategies proactively today and prevent those crashes from happening in the future. So the traditional approach to traffic safety. I just want to get this kind of in your mind of, kind of how people, maybe what the industry has done in the past. There's elements of this. There's some elements here that we still need to use in a comprehensive approach. But what I'm going to talk about in the context of a traditional only approach. Okay? So the public perception. Public believes, or the perception, if you go back to the question, how many people have to die before you do something, highway agencies wait until enough people are killed or injured before doing something, and then they identify where those problem locations are located and select future safety countermeasures, parentheses, if they even do anything at all. That's the public perception. And I don't say that irrespectfully, I say that respectfully. Agency perception is, hey, we're waiting for those crashes, we're looking for those crash locations, worst first, black spot analysis. We look for high to moderate cost safety countermeasures. That might be intersection realignments, interchanges, those types of things. And then we use, those projects are justified by benefit cost analysis. Right? But I would argue that there is a consequence to that approach only. This approach is necessary in a comprehensive basis, but on using this approach only, it invites some difficult questions or challenges. Political, public relations, again, that question, how many people have to die before you do something? Guess what? Whether we think it or not, that's kind of what we're doing in a traditional only approach. We're waiting for enough crashes to accumulate, and then we do something. Because we have to justify with a benefit cost ratio in order to expend public funds at those locations. Distracted engineering, there may be pressure for folks from the public or elected officials to say, put your efforts at these locations even though they may not be the real locations. And I find that's one of the largest challenges as a traffic engineer is, I don't want to use the word combating because that suggests maybe an adversarial relationship, because it's not, but an educational opportunity with the public of what is the real problem. I spoke with a local resident that was convinced that this specific intersection was of greatest importance. And I understood where he's coming from. It was a father concerned about his family, his neighbors. I get it. But when you look in the broad level of risk, I had to help him understand that his location was at lower risk than many other locations. So it comes down to a question of risk. Drain on resources. If we're always reacting to these crash events, if a serious crash happens, they tend to happen. And if we're always responding to those things only, it kind of ties up our time, it ties up our resources, ties up our ability to do other safety projects. No system-wide accomplishments. I would suggest that if you look at the crash data nationally and statewide for the last 20 years, a traditional only approach hasn't moved us all that far. But then it gets this maybe a little deeper question. This is where the safety data comes into question. Is serious crashes are typically occur in the rural locations, and they are typically widely dispersed, spread out across the system. Think about this fact. In greater Minnesota, this was part of the County Road Safety Plan analysis that figured this out, 50% of our serious roadway departure crashes occur on curves, yet 75% of the curves in a previous 5-year period had no crashes. That means extreme low density. How do you identify which curves to treat? But we know curves are the problem, but you can't identify where to treat them. That's an issue. So how do we prioritize locations with low density? Take this chart I put together with some public data. If you look at the total mileage by different jurisdictional roadway and look at total crashes, fatal crashes, and then you look at that fatal crash density. That's an extremely low density. Take 0.003 times the total mileage in your agency. That's not very many, especially over hundreds of miles. So then I would ask the question, how are you going to predict or identify which location you're going to treat proactively so that you don't have to wait for that next crash to happen? It's like I remember in growing up, it was that whack-a-mole game, this arcade game where you never know which hole the mole is going to pop its head out, and you're always knocking it down. That's kind of the game I feel when we're playing when it comes to these types of serious crash events. So how do we measure success? Well, historically, the primary safety performance measure has been number of total crashes. Question, how many, is that the right performance measure? Now keep in mind, I'm going to set this up. Property damage, low severity crashes are scary, they're frustrating, but at the end of the day, I get to go home to my family. And I get to go to work tomorrow, if I can find a car to ride in. But serious crashes are different. They have great personal and economical cost. Great cost. So I would suggest that safety should be defined by a reduction, ultimately elimination if possible, in serious crashes. That would be our yardstick. And they're different. They lead you to different locations. If you use a total crash analysis basis, you're going to end up probably in the urban areas on signalized corridors. That's where most of our crashes are occurring in Minnesota, and nationally by that matter. But only 10% of those fatal crashes are at these locations of high crash locations. But their fatal crashes are overrepresented in rural areas. And the common types are right angle, head-on, single vehicle run off the road. In fact, I did that in not correct chronological order. If we rank them by the percent of contributing to fatal crashes, number 1, it's single vehicle run off the road. That's number 1. Number 2, right angle. That's your rural four-legged two-way stop intersections. And number 3, it's your head-on crashes. It's those 3. In fact, in St. Louis County, nearly 70% of our serious crashes are defined by those 3 crash types. So a little bit about introducing this whole systemic approach and how this works. And first I'm going to start off with this schematic or this drawing from the Federal Highway Administration, just kind of representing what the systemic approach process looks like. And there's 3 basic elements. There's first an element of selecting our locations and our countermeasures. So we have to identify, and I'm going to get you kind of thinking in this term of risk, not crash history. That's different. So identifying locations from risk and identifying countermeasures for those locations of risk. Achieving then the correct balance, as I talked about, this between traditional traffic safety approach and the systemic approach, making a comprehensive approach. And then third, any good system or process needs to self-evaluate itself to ensure that it's doing the appropriate treatments. What it is not. The systemic approach is not road safety audits. That's where you look at specific locations, maybe a high traffic corridor, a series of intersections, whatever the case is, but it's a specific location that you're looking at with an abnormal number of crashes and you're trying to identify what's going wrong and what do we need to do. It's not worst first, where we simply say, let's rank all of our intersections by total crashes, or severity rate, or rate, crash rate, or whatever metric, and then pick off the ones from top to bottom. And it's not a site-specific improvement program where you use engineering studies to identify those locations that have problem areas, but then suggest improvements like turn lanes and those sorts of things. It is a planning process. Again, the improvements are based upon risk factors. We're going to get into that here shortly. And it's proactive deployment of low-cost safety strategies over the entire at-risk system. Okay? The at-risk system is a minority of our system. So we're not talking about treating 3,000 miles of St. Louis County roadways. We're talking about treating hundreds of miles of St. Louis County roadways. The traditional approach would suggest that crashes equals risk and no crashes equals no risk. The systemic approach would suggest no crashes does not equal no risk. I can illustrate that by, we recently finished up a chevron signing project at 117 high-risk curves in St. Louis County. And I received a couple phone calls from residents saying, why are you installing the chevron signs at this curve? I've lived here for my entire life, 40, 50, 60 years. Nobody's ever ran off the corner there. In fact, I don't ever remember anybody running off the corner here. Why are you putting up chevron signs? Well, I can explain that question. In their mind, they're thinking there's been no crashes, there's no risk. I'm looking at it saying, well, this has the symptoms or the risk factors that are correlated to these high crash locations that we need to take a look at. Recognizing also that approximately 50% of our serious crashes happening on the local system. It's not just a state system issue only. It's a state/local issue. And focusing on our segments, intersections, and curves, which gives us most of our system representation. So I'm going to use this chart real quick to give you kind of an example of how you can use a collision or a crash tree to dig down to locations that are at risk, the things that we need to focus on. So we look at these 5 years of crashes on the state, county, city system. And we just focus on the county system here. And we use the red numbers. Those are the serious crashes, type K or K-type and A-type crashes. And you just simply follow the red boxes because that's simply what I did. Follow the red boxes with the highest red number percentage. Because remember, our serious crashes are our performance target. It gets us down to curves. That's our focus area. Hence, why are we so focused on curve countermeasures? This is why. This is where most of our run-off-the-road crashes are occurring. And if you follow down the intersection-related tree, that branch, you're going to come to your through-stop yield intersections. That's your four-legged, two-way stop intersections. Okay? So this really resulted in a change of direction in Minnesota about 5+ years ago. Actually, maybe longer than that, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, but where the counties had a county road safety plan developed for them. All 87 counties received their own unique plan. This was funded by MnDOT. The safety plan ranks all the locations based upon risk. In fact, I brought my copy today, so if you are interested in taking a look at it, you can actually come up afterwards and thumb through it. I apologize for our online participants, but go to the MnDOT website and you can find an example safety plan. But there's 3 things that the safety plan did, I would argue. Number 1, it changed our focus from reactive to proactive. Number 2, instead of looking at a localized basis of saying, I need to, okay, this intersection is of concern, that corridor is of concern over there, it says, no, I'm going to look at the entire system of basis. I'm going to look at the entire system. It's systemic. And then events-based versus risk-based. So instead of waiting for crashes to occur, I'm going to use a risk-based approach to identify those locations. And this is the process that in Minnesota we use for developing these county road safety plans, where again, we selected those safety emphasis areas, looked at the list of safety strategies. We conducted safety workshops. I thought was unique for the safety plan experience, where we invited other non-engineering folks to vote on what type of priorities should be in the safety plan, what type of safety strategies should be in the safety plan, and it really created a kind of a nice comprehensive plan at the end of the day. And ultimately it created or identified these safety projects. Here's a list of example risk factors that are actually in the county road safety plan for intersections. These are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I thought there were 7. There was only 7 risk factors that were identified for this phase of the county road safety plan. Skew, near a railroad crossing, total crashes. Oh, total crashes was only 1 star out of 7. It doesn't get 2 stars or 3 stars weight. It's 1 star out of 7. So it's equivalent weight of, is there skew? That's equivalent weight to if there was a crash. And ultimately we were able to create this table. And so again, we had segments, intersections, and curves. This is a listing of our intersections. from, this is actually the top of the list for St. Louis County. And you can see we have the top rated intersection is actually 6 stars, not 7. We were missing a railroad crossing on that number 1 intersection. But this is then the way that we prioritize where should we be looking at, where should we be spending our attention and focus on treating these locations proactively. And guess what? Many of these locations may not have had very many crashes. In fact, I would guess that most of them didn't have very many crashes. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't take a look at them seriously. The next question was we've identified the locations, but then identify those safety strategies to say, what should we be doing at those locations? And the reason for this slide is just to talk about this whole question of confidence in the type of strategy that we select. NCHRP, the National Cooperative Highway Research Program, classifies different safety strategies by effectiveness. And that's proven, tried, experimental. The proven says that it's supported by rigorous academic study, meaning that if I were to do a study on effective edgeline rumble strips and reducing run-off-the-road crashes, I'm probably going to find very similar results in Minnesota, Iowa, Wyoming, Georgia, wherever. It comes to the same conclusion and has been verified multiple times by multiple studies. High confidence of saying that if I were to install an edgeline rumble strip, the crash modification factor, or I should say the reduction factor, would be 30 to 35%. Okay? Tried means that there may have been some evaluations, but there may be some conflicting results. I love to use this as an example, the transverse rumble strip approaching a rural intersection where we have rumble strips grooved in, transverse across the lane, so as you're approaching the stop sign, you feel that and hear the rumble of the vehicle. Those are tried. Those are not proven. There's studies that show conflicting experience, saying that in some cases intersection crashes increased after the installation of transverse rumble strips, so that the jury's out on that. I'm not saying that they couldn't be proven. Maybe we just don't know how to install them correctly. Then we have experimental. A good example of that would be the Minnesota Rural Intersection Warning Conflict Warning System, the RICWIS system. Currently it's experimental. Ongoing evaluations are currently happening. I would expect maybe in the next few years we would be seeing some more movement in terms of identifying the effectiveness with confidence of how effective that type of strategy is. But then there's also this issue of the level of impact or cost. Obviously, we can't put roundabouts at every intersection. $1 to $2 million is simply, we don't have enough money. And that's another thing to think about. We have to be thinking in terms of thousands and hundreds. We can't be thinking in terms of hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars per intersection, per location. There isn't enough money. We have to think in that low-cost spectrum. And so what we try to do in the safety plan is we try to go towards proven safety countermeasures that were low cost and that we could widely deploy because they're low cost over the at-risk system. Chevron signs are proven at reducing run-off-the-road crashes, and it cost in our project, because we used our own sign forces, about $1,000 to $2,000 per intersection to install Chevron signs. The cost-benefit ratio is huge. Here's a list of projects that we actually did in St. Louis County that were directly out of our county road safety plan. You can see the amounts that we spent on these different projects. But look at the focus areas. Curve warning, edgeline rumble strips, intersection lighting, 6-inch epoxy edgeline. That's just, think of it as a wide edgeline. A standard edgeline is 4 inches. A wide edgeline is 6 inches. But there's apparently some benefit of having a wide edgeline of reducing run-off-the-road crashes. But the focus here is run off the road and intersection. Run off the road and intersection. Why? Well, that's our biggest problem. It's number 1, run off the road. Number 2, intersections. And here's some pictures that I took of these different strategies. I like the bottom picture the best because it combines 3 different safety countermeasures. It includes the Chevron sign, it includes the wide 6-inch edge line, and it includes a edgeline rumble strip. So 3 in 1. I like that picture. These are all in St. Louis County, these pictures. Now the one on the right, that's just a simple looking edgeline, 6-inch edgeline rumble, or 6-inch edgeline, I should say. we get good feedback regarding the 6-inch edge line. It's amazing the difference between a 4-inch and a 6-inch, how it stands out to the driver. The edge line really becomes contrasted with the surrounding area. And then intersection lighting, you can see in the upper left-hand corner, that's a proven safety strategy. When we install these things, we expect a 15 to 20% reduction in intersection-related crashes. Also, what we did with this County Road Safety Plan is develop these project sheets where we were able to identify those high-risk locations. This is an intersection in northern St. Louis County. It gave some metrics or data about the intersection and then some crash data, what risk factors it had, but then it's summarized by saying these are the recommended projects for that location. And I love this analogy. I was waiting for this slide. Doctors have been doing the systemic approach for a long time. A long time. We're just finally catching up to the medical field. Think about it. You go to your doctor, you're having a physical or whatever the case is. They're going to inquire about your family health history, your personal health history, your diet, your behavior, those sorts of things. The doctor then uses this information to identify if you're at risk for developing certain diseases. And then the doctor makes recommendations on proactively treating those things so that you don't have to deal with a more serious disease later in life. Right? That is the systemic approach to a T. That is exactly what we're doing on the highway system. We know what the risk factors are. We know what the safety strategies are. It's just a matter of implementing it. And the nice thing about the systemic approach is you don't need crash data. Crash data is nice, but we find, if you look at Minnesota, if you look at other rural states, the problems tend to be the same. It's run off the road. It's right angle crashes at intersections. It's head-on crashes. So we know the common factors that are included in these locations. So we don't need necessarily a tremendous, robust level of information or data to be able to start doing some minimal level systemic analysis on our system. We can start relying on some of these others more robust type systemic plans that have been published and using that information. So I want to not just talk all cherries regarding this process, but say there are some concerns, obviously. And we did a survey of the county engineers. This is about 3 or so years after most of the counties had their plans. And I can consolidate down or boil down the concerns into 3 bullet points. My priority is different than the plan's priority. So it was a counterintuitive plan, and that's what I love about traffic engineering is it's a completely counterintuitive practice. Everything about traffic engineering, for the most part, is counterintuitive. You want to increase safety? Increase the speed limit. That's a counterintuitive thing. But their priority, what their perceived priority was, is different than what the plan's priority. Number 2, they thought it limited their engineering judgment, saying, well, this is giving me project sheets and very prescriptive projects. What about my engineering judgment? And then number 3, this question of political support. And this is not a criticism, but just my perspective, my 1.5 cents. These aren't ribbon-cutting type projects. They're low-cost type projects. I mean, okay, I put up 15 Chevron signs on a curve. Okay, it's not a new bridge. It's not a new 2-lane to a 4-lane expansion, that kind of stuff. And I want to kind of start finishing up here and looking at the results. We're getting some preliminary results here in Minnesota. This chart shows the crash rates by system type. And you look at the blue line, that is actually the county road system crash rate, fatality rate, I should say. And the green is trunk highway, the blue is state, and the brown is interstates. But you can see that we started preparing the plans in about 2009, 2010. Widespread deployment was beginning in 2011 to 2012. I'm not going to argue that these plans had everything to do with that bend, but I think there's some interesting initial results taking place. The only system that had a marked decrease was the county road system in that time frame. And then this other item that MnDOT did recently of validating the systemic approach. They are just finishing up, in fact, I think they're done, writing district safety plans using the systemic approach. Basically, it's a county road safety plan. That process, they applied it to the districts. So the districts had their own safety plans, just like the counties did. And so a validation exercise was done for, they used the, well, let me back up. They used the 2009 to 2013 data to prepare their district safety plans. So they were able to look at 2014 and 15 crash data to determine, did our safety plans correctly identify where the serious crashes actually occurred? Okay, so we're saying, if you back up to 2013, we've got the 5 years of data suggesting these are our at-risk locations. We can't prove it, but the risk factors are suggesting this is where we're going to have the problems at. Fast forward, we're able to look back and use that 2014-15 data and say, did it actually come true? And here's the results. The high-risk locations that were identified in the district safety plans represented 26% of all the intersections analyzed in the districts. Okay, so there was only 26% of the intersections in the districts of the DOT that were identified at high risk. Those 26% of intersections accounted for nearly 50% of the serious crashes. Nearly 50%. What does this say? It means an investment in just the high-risk locations can almost affect 50%. So an investment in the minority can possibly have a result in the majority of crashes in terms of affecting those, reducing those. Federal Highway Administration, the EDC, the Everyday Counts Initiative, basically it's a collaboration between FHWA and AASHTO at identifying these different innovations across the transportation engineering discipline on accelerating projects, improving safety, those sorts of things. And the data-driven safety analysis, DDSA, their recent round is, they're included in the recent round of the EDC. And the systemic approach is one of the two focus areas of the DDSA, the data-driven safety analysis module of the EDC. The other is the predictive approach, where basically you use crash data. You look at a location, it's location-based. Use the crash data, use crash modification factors, and identify, hey, I've got different options of reducing crashes. I could do a road diet, those sorts of things. What benefit will I get using the crash modification factors? So the benefits of the systemic approach. It identifies a problem on a system-wide basis, whereas if you looked at just the crash data only at specific locations, you may not be able to find that problem. It identifies roadway characteristics that are prone or appear to be prone to contributing to those high serious crash locations. Low-cost countermeasures can be deployed across the entire at-risk system. And this whole exercise of prioritizing the network so we can screen that better instead of just looking at a worst first basis. So it's much more comprehensive. It's a risk-based instead of crash-based only. I'm not going to read this quote verbatim, but basically it says that there's been great results that have taken place in Minnesota in the recent years. We're still only in the high 400s, low 500s in terms of number of fatal crashes per year. Fatalities per year in Minnesota. So we're down from about 600, 620 down to about 500 fatalities now, even in the mid 400s a couple years ago. So we're making great progress, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done yet. And my final concluding remarks, and this is from a practitioner's perspective, not a, I appreciate the academics, I was in the academics, but from a practitioner's perspective, I can build trust with my local elected officials by applying this process. I really appreciate my local elected board in terms of, they've given us that support. We've been able to demonstrate that there's tangible, effective results by applying the systemic approach. It sets you up for taking advantage of the Highway Safety Improvement Program. That is in fact, if you look at the legislation language, it's specific to data type. It's a data-driven legislative statement. It applies safety countermeasures at those locations that are at risk. I don't think he uses the word risk, but it's a data-driven basis. So the systemic approach is data-driven. You're focusing on your safety strategies at those high-risk locations, not the entire system. It's a minority of the system. And I would suggest that we're starting to realize those benefits that you can see from that crash rate, fatality rate chart in Minnesota. Time will tell. We are, I think, in another 5 years, we're going to have a really good picture of how we've done with this. It's fun being a traffic engineer in Minnesota right now, even nationally. A colleague of mine refers to it as the golden age of safety that we're currently in right now, and I believe that. And so there's lots of, I think, even many years ahead of interesting, a lot of opportunities, interesting projects, a lot of great opportunities in the future. I place these different resources on here. I'm sure you can get this website or this presentation online, so you can look at these later. But I would recommend, if you're interested in following up on the topic more, look at these different resources. Great information there. This is my contact information. I think I'm landing right on time of where I wanted to be able to take some questions and answers. So I hope that I was able to generate some thoughts and some interesting questions on your part. And I would be glad to take any questions from the audience today.
Thank you. Again, if any of you have questions, please, you need to use the microphone, even though you can all hear yourself. People off in TV land cannot hear you unless you use the microphone. Any questions? Well, let me start it off since I don't hear any yet. You know, what happened in 2008, we reached kind of a low in number of severe crashes. Yeah. And we've seen slowly, nationally, an increase in fatals and severe crashes. And one conjecture is that there's a difference between work-related crashes and work-related driving and discretionary driving. And what happens when we go through a recession, there's much less work-related, more discretionary, and when we have more discretionary driving, usually we find that people are running off the road, drinking more, doing lots of things that they wouldn't normally do when they're just driving to work.
Yep.
Do you see that in your analysis of the data? Because we're now beginning to see an uptick because, again, there's more employment, more work-related driving as opposed to discretionary driving. So what does that all mean?
That's a great question. And I'm going to preface it right off by the hand by saying I don't believe anybody has a real concrete answer to that. But I will offer a couple things. If you look at the VMT, the vehicle miles traveled, historically, go back to the 1940s. We had a low of, like in Minnesota, I think it was about 300 or 400 fatalities during World War II. Our VMT was tanked. It was in the bottom. In 2011, I think, or 2012 is when we achieved our lowest number of fatalities in Minnesota since World War II. Yeah, you look at our VMT, and it's through the roof, relatively to that era. So I think that there is a relationship, obviously, between discretionary driving and possibly this uptick in crashes. I would argue, though, that our systems that we're designing and we're engineering today are vastly more safer than they were. Look at our vehicles, you look at the enforcement, all these different ways that we're approaching safety. And also you could look at saying, well, we would expect there to be some trends where the trend line is still declining, but you would expect there to be periodic increases or decreases, the whole issue of regression to the mean, that sort of thing. So I don't know if there's any one answer that can answer that, but I think that if you look at the trend going back to 2006 in Minnesota, 2003 even, we're still on the downward trend. This year versus last year, we're about 20 fewer fatalities at this time. So this year may actually be better than last year, which kind of maybe pushes it back down lower again. I don't know. It's a very good question, though. I wish I had a better answer.
This question is from Derek online, who has joined us remotely. How will you go about the second round of the county safety plans?
Yep, that's a great question. So Minnesota, we're actually starting the process of the second phase of the county road safety plans. There's going to be approximately 15 counties participating this time, or up to 15. 87 counties in total in the state, so it'll be a much smaller number of counties. It's going to do a couple multi-pronged approaches. Number one, it's going to actually evaluate what happened with County Road Phase 1, County Road Safety Plan Phase 1. Were those strategies effective? If you look at it, the analogy of the fruit tree, we were picking all the low-hanging fruit in Phase 1 of the County Road Safety Plan. I think we're going to start elevating that ladder a little higher, so we're getting that mid-range fruit. Takes a little more effort, so that equates to probably some smaller number of these types of projects, but maybe moderate level cost projects. So maybe looking at high friction surface treatments, maybe ITS type strategies, maybe a little more intersection geometric improvements, those sorts of things. I don't think we will always have the low-hanging fruit strategies included in our plan. It has to be a comprehensive approach. But I think Phase 2, we're going to have a more focused plan in terms of the high-risk locations, if I could use that term. So that's a very good question.
I have a question. Some subset of these sparse crashes involve pedestrians and cyclists. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious about how you factor those considerations in.
So the question is regarding pedestrians and fatal pedestrian crashes. If you look at the urban areas, in fact, there's been some initial look at in the metro area of trying to use the systemic approach to identifying high-risk locations in the urban area. I've done it in the Duluth, not as robust though as that other study, but I've done it in the Duluth-Hermantown metro area. And what I'm coming to see, and it appears to be very similar to the metro, the two primary issues, well, number one, the number one location where we're experiencing most of our serious crashes, signals, traffic signals. By definition, somebody ran the red light. In terms of pedestrians in the Duluth metro area, the vast majority are occurring at signalized intersections and on 30-mile-per-hour speed limit corridors. Completely counterintuitive. The public would suggest that our pedestrian crashes are happening on high-speed, multi-lane, mid-block crossings. It appears that most of our serious pedestrian crashes are happening at signalized intersections, which it's hard for me to even get my mind around this, but that's where we have the most pedestrian control features. We have the push buttons, we have the countdown timers, we have signalized phasing, pedestrian leading intervals, those sorts of things. So it's a more difficult process to apply in the urban area. Again, if you look at serious crashes, there's not as many serious crashes in the urban area. Definitely it has to be part of our towards zero death vision, because ultimately we can't get to towards zero death unless we look at the urban areas. But I think it's going to be a slightly different approach, maybe more crash data based than risk factor based in the urban areas.
Derek, who asked the last question about the second round of county safety plans, had a comment, if you have a comment back. Minnesota is currently running about even with last year in regards to total fatalities. However, the rest of the country has seen about a 9% increase.
Yep. I'll add on to Derek's comment. In St. Louis County, I have to preface this by I don't have the official data set in front of me, but I've been watching. So I get all the crash reports across my desk for the county roads. And my recollection so far is that I've seen one fatal crash report this year. Historically, we've had 8 to 12 fatal crashes a year in St. Louis County. I don't know. I'm very interested in seeing at the end of this year what we ultimately end up in St. Louis County, but in our county, it appears that we might have the lowest number of fatal crashes ever. And which is interesting to me because we just finished up one of our biggest efforts on the systemic basis, which was 117 curves, 57 rural intersections with lighting, and we've treated all the roads that we possibly can with edgeline rumble strips and 6-inch edgeline. It'll be interesting to see it in early next year to see if that's holding true, but we'll see.
One-third of all road fatalities are alcohol-related or substance abuse. What do we do about that number?
That is a tough question. It gets into what do we as a society view as culturally acceptable, what invasion of personal privacy, those sorts of issues. You know, I don't know. I mean, I can give you my opinion real quick. I look at it and say, airline pilots, it's unacceptable for them to have any intoxication level at all. Therefore, somebody driving a 4,000-pound object next to me at 70 miles an hour should have that same threshold, 0%. But it gets into this whole question of personal freedoms and that sort of thing. I don't know where we go. It'll be interesting. I mean, we've had our debates in Minnesota and nationally, especially at the 0.08 level and blood alcohol content. But if you look at other European countries, I think I can't remember which one. I think one of them is like down to like 0.1 or 0.2%, or maybe even 0%. Sweden comes to mind, but it's interesting. We just have it's a cultural question that I don't know how we answer or respond to.
So more to that point, how do you think we're doing with awareness for issues like that? I mean, how often do you get calls about, say, texting, which is, say, 10% of our fatals, versus speeding and alcohol, which are both around 30% of our fatals,
Yep.
and 50% when we're talking about unbelted drivers.
Yep.
So I'm just curious, you know, for the people that are
Yep.
calling you up, do you feel like we have a little bit of myopia for distraction and losing sight of some of these bigger killers?
Yep. That is an excellent question. I'm glad you asked that. I'll answer it this way. Nobody has, I would say about 5% or less, I'm not kidding, of the folks who call my office have expressed concern of driver behavioral issues. It's all engineering issues, which tells me something. Either they're not aware that these behaviors are producing these these serious crashes, or they view it as, well, I do that, but I still think I'm a good driver. It will never happen to me. Those sorts of things. Every time I talk to somebody, I put it right back on them. I say, do you find texting and driving acceptable? The number one complaint I get in my office is speeding. We need to lower the speed limit because that'll make it better. Well, this whole cultural issue of acceptance of exceeding the speed limit. What about, so I'll ask them, what about you? And they'll say, oh, well, sometimes I speed, well, I mean, you can't just look at other people and lob those moral darts over there and say, well, you shouldn't do it, but it's, it really comes back to a personal responsibility question. That's my opinion. So.
I could add all sorts of things by looking at various counties. There's one county in this particular state that the fatal crashes associated with alcohol are out of sight, but it's a tourist issue. And they like to keep the economy going, and they refuse to enforce as much as they should on DWIs. But anyway, we can go on and talk about these issues. Just want to, two things. First, join me in thanking our speaker, Vic Lund, very informative. I looked around the room and nobody was sleeping, everybody was paying attention, so it was really great. And please join us again next week, same time, same place, same channel. And we're going to have Frank Dama, Director of the State and Local Policy Program at the Humphrey School of Public Affairs. He's going to be talking on perspectives and impacts of speed regulation in Minnesota, the problem of speeding, the problem of automated speed enforcement, and all sorts of related issues. How do we get people to drive at safer speeds? And what is a safer speed? Discussion next week. Please join us again, same time, same place, 3 o'clock next Thursday. Thank you.